أما بعد سورة الغاشية أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم هل أتاك حديث الغاشية وجوه يومئذ خاشعة عاملة ناصبة تصلى نارا حامية تسقى من عين آنية ليس لهم طعام إلا من ضريع لا يسمن ولا يغني من جوع صدق الله العظيم. Has there come to you the story of the enveloper, the overwhelming Ghashiyah, the day, which will cover all mankind, the day of resurrection. Wujuhun yawmaidhin khashiyah, many faces on that day shall be downcast. Amilatun nasibah, laboring and tired, exhausted. Tasla naran hamiyah, entering into the scorching fire. Tusqa min ainin aniyah, made to drink from a boiling fountain, a fountain of boiling water. Laysa lahum ta'amun illa min dhari', they will have no food except bitter thorns. La yusminu wa la yughni min ju', neither nourishing nor satisfying the hunger. Wujuhun yawmaidhin na'ima, on the contrary, many faces on that day shall be delighted. Lisa'yiha radiyah, they will be very much pleased with the results of their endeavors, when they will see the result that they are going to get for whatever they did in the past life. They will be pleased with it. Fi jannatin aliyah, in a very high garden. La tasma'u fiha laghiyah, they will not hear there even any vain talk. A cultured person doesn't like to even listen to gossips and vain talks. Fiha ainun jariyah, in that there is a flowing fountain. Fiha sururun marfu'ah, there are raised couches. Wa akwabun mawdu'ah, and goblets arranged in order. Wa namariqu masfufah, and cushions set in rows. Wa zarabiyyu mabsusa, and carpets spread out. Afala yanzuruna ila al-ibili kayfa khuliqat, so do they not look at the camels, how they are created? All these creations are signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for the Arabs, these four things, they were mostly before their eyes. They kept traveling, and when they traveled, they used to be on the horses, on the backs of the camels. Under them is the earth, over them the sky, and to right or left of them the mountains. Because this Hijaz, is a mountainous country, so the journey used to be in the valleys. Valley is between two mountains. To the right of them mountain, to the left of them mountain. So these four things especially, they are mentioned here. Afala yanzuruna ila al-ibili kayfa khuliqat, so do they not look at the camel, how they are created, how they are fitting with the environment, their bodies, their physiology absolutely suits the environment in which it has to live. Wa ila as-samaa'i kayfa rufi'at, and to the heaven, how it is raised high. Wa ila al-jibali kayfa nusibat, and to the mountains to their left and right, how they have been fixed. Wa ila al-ardi kayfa sutihat, and to the earth beneath them, how it has been spread out. Fazakkir innama anta muzakkir, so Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you go on admonishing them, reminding them, inviting them to see all these signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These signs are everywhere in the universe. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ, and even within yourselves. فَذَكِّرْ. So you go on reminding them, go on admonishing them. لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطِرٍ. You are not a warder over them. You are not responsible for them. Your function is to convey the message and to admonish them. Now, this point, I think, must be cleared, that the two levels are different. At the individual level, no man has ever been compelled to accept Islam and will never be compelled to accept Islam. La ikraha fi ddin, qad tabayyana ar-rushd min al-ghayy. Individuals, this is the rule. But the system, for that, the rule is absolutely converse. If the believers have power and they let the system of falsehood remain, then they are not loyal to the truth. If they have power, they have to uproot the wrong system and establish the deen of Allah, which is the just system of life. If they don't have power, okay, then they have to continue the effort to get that power. The dawah, the training, the organization, all that, what for? So that you have that power, that strength with which you can change the system. So for changing the system, power has to be used. And we shall apply coercion. If we have power, we shall use it. But not for compelling any individual to accept Islam as a mazhab. فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُذَكِّرْ. So you go on reminding them and admonishing them. لَسْتَ عَلَيْهِمْ بِمُسَيْطِرٍ. You are not a warder over them. إِلَّا مَنْ تَوَلَّى وَكَفَرْ. But whosoever turns back and disbelieves, فَيُعَذِّبُهُ اللَّهُ الْعَذَابَ الْأَكْبَرَ. Then Allah will chastise him with the greatest chastisement. Why greatest? Because Muhammad is the greatest caller towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is the greatest prophet of Allah, greatest messenger of Allah. Quran is the last and the greatest word of Allah. Now even if all these things they don't believe, so they deserve the greatest punishment. Inna ilayna iyabahum, verily, to us is their return. They can't go anywhere else. They have to come to us. Summa inna alayna hisabahum, then on us, upon us, is their accounting and reckoning. It's our duty to tell them this is your account. This is the credit, this is the discredit. Here also you saw, فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مُذَكِّرْ. And because the sermon of Jummah is for tazkir. There is a hadith in the Sahih of Imam Muslim, rahimahullah. كَانَ لِلنَّبِيِّ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ خُطْبَتَانِ. For the Prophet there were two khutbahs, just as we have today. All the imams, khatibs, two khutbahs, they sit in between them. يَجْلِسُ بَيْنَهُمَا. Used to sit and for some time between the two. كَانَ يَقْرَأُ آيَاتٍ مِنَ الْقُرْآنِ وَيُذَكِّرُ النَّاسِ. And this was the subject of khutbah. That he used to recite the ayat of Quran and remind people. So this sermon of Jummah is actually to remind people. And as I explained when we were reading Surah Al-Jummah, actually this is the weekly meeting of Hizbullah, the party of Allah, which is to strive to establish the deen of Allah on earth. And for that purpose, they must keep fresh in their minds the ideology of Islam. If this ideology becomes dim, then their motivation will decrease. Their commitment will decrease. So refresh the ideology, The basic thought, the basic ideology, it must be refreshed every week. Surah Al-Fajr and Surah Al-Balad are another pair. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوَتْرِ وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرِ هَلْ فِي ذَلِكَ قَسَمٌ لِذِي حِجْرٍ صدق الله العظيم. As I said before also, this subject of the oaths of Quran is a very difficult subject. Somewhere it's easy to understand what is muqsam bihi, what is muqsam alayh, with what the oath is being taken, on what the oath is being taken. And there is a rational connection between the two. But at most of the other places, there are several, interpretations and several meanings given by Mufassirin. But there are places where we can't say surely what is the exact meaning. Wal Fajr, by the dawn. Now I understand that, as I said before, was subh iza asfar. It denoted in Surah Al-Mudassir the advent of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the beginning of the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Was subh iza asfar. In the same way, I think that here also it is being pointed in that direction by the dawn. Walayalin ashr, and by the 10 nights. Mostly people think these are the 10 nights of Zul Hijjah. First 10 days of Zul Hijjah. They are very sacred. Washafi wal watr, by the even and the odd. Many sayings are there about the interpretation. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرِ, and by the night when it departs. This again, as far as I think, denotes to the advent of the Prophet ﷺ. The night is departing. وَاللَّيْلِ is adbar. وَالصُّبْحِ إِذَا أَسْفَرْ. So in the beginning Fajr, and in the end, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرِ, and then the night, by the night when it departs. هَلْ فِي ذَلِكَ قَسَمٌ لِذِي حِجْرٍ, is there not in that an oath for a man? Now, the historical events, only brief mentions of Qawm Aad and Samud and so on. Alam tara kayfa fa'ala rabbuka bi'ad? Didn't you see what your Lord did with the nation of Aad? How he dealt with them? Iram Zat al-Imad, of Iram, having very high pillars. They say that Iram was the name of the city. Aad was name of the nation. Iram was the city. And that is said generally, Jannatul Shaddad. Shaddad was an emperor of Aad. And he has, a city he established, a very beautiful, all gardens. And then on the ramparts there were very high pillars. So Iram Zat al-Imad, that city of Iram, which had very high pillars. Allati lam yukhlaq misluha fil bilad, the like of whom were never created in the lands. That was for the first time. It must be at least 6,000 years from now. And there was some news that now this city has been seen under the desert. There are the remnants of this city present. Now because there are techniques with which they can see what is beneath the soil. Otherwise over it is a very bad desert. Nothing stands over there. Everything sinks into the sand. Quick sands. ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بعاد إرم ذات العماد التي لم يخلق مثلها في البلاد وثمود الذين جابوا الصخر بالواد. And didn't you see what your Lord did with Samud? Who carved the rocks in the valleys. They can be seen till today in Hijr, about 100 miles northwest of Medina. There are, in the mountains, they have carved big halls, big houses, palaces. They are still موجود. وَفِرْعَوْنَ ذِي الْأَوْتَادِ. And then you see how your Lord dealt with Fir'aun. The Fir'aun who had the 10 pegs, ذِي الْأَوْتَادِ. So big an army that with that army there used to be tents. And to erect the tanks, they needed pegs. So even the pegs were so great in number that several hundred horses or camels were carrying the pegs only. So Fir'aun Zil Awtad, this became his name. Allazina taghaw fil bilad. Those who transgressed in the lands. Now this Tughyani is with respect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whosoever transgresses from the limits of obedience. Because for jinns and humans, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Whosoever rises above this level. So he is Tughyan, Taghut, الَّذِينَ تَغَوْا فِي الْبِلَادِ فَأَكْثَرُوا فِيهَا الْفَسَادِ. And as a result, they multiplied therein corruption and mischief. Now these are two dimensions. Tagha against Allah and fasad among the mankind. When you are transgressing against Allah, then you know there shall be oppressions, there will be killings, there will be all sorts of mischiefs and miscreants. So this is two aspects. Ibadullah, Huququllah or Huququl Ibad. Regarding Huququllah, they transgressed. Regarding Huququl Ibad, they created corruption and mischief in the land. فَصَبَّ عَلَيْهِمْ رَبُّكَ صَوْتَ عَذَابٍ. So your Lord let loose on them the lashes of punishment. إِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَبِالْمِرْصَادِ. Verily your Lord is ever on the watch. فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَّمَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمَنِ وَأَمَّا إِذَا مَا ابْتَلَاهُ فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانَنِ. These are the two central ayat of this surah, and they give you the central theme of this surah. Before this, 14 ayat, all small, small, small. After that also, then from 17th onwards, very small ayat. But these are long ayat too. فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ, as for man, إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ, whenever his Lord tries him, tests him, by honoring him and blessing him, he says, فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمًا. إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَّمَهُ. He honors him and blesses him. Then he says, my Lord has honored me. وَأَمَّا إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ. But when his Lord tries him and tests him, فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ, and straightens or restricts for him his sustenance, فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانًا. Then he says, my Lord has humiliated me. What is wrong in it? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you wealth, all the blessings of this world, if you say Allah has honored me, is it wrong? If you are poor and your needs are not fulfilled, if you say Allah has humiliated me, what's wrong in it? He is not attributing it to any other God. Allah. Allah has honored me. Allah has humiliated me. But what's the wrong? What's the mistake? The mistake is that if Allah gives you plenty, this is also a test, not honor. And if He gives you less, this is also a test, not humiliation. Both conditions are equal in this respect. They are for testing. The honor will be on that day. Whosoever is honored on that day, he will be honored. ذَلِكَ يَوْمُ التَّغَابُنِ. Allah will gather them, and that day will be ذَلِكَ يَوْمُ التَّغَابُنِ. So actually, to think that this is honor, this is wrong. If you are poor, you think you have been humiliated, this is wrong. Both conditions are equal. They are tests. Rather, they should be one step further. Now these are, steps, guidance and, going on the wrong path, step by step. The highest Zallal Dalalam Baida would be, then if Allah has given you something and blessed you, you say this is from Lat or Uzza or Manat. And when you are in trouble, you say that Hubal is perhaps angry from me. But this is the shirk. This is the worst, thing that a man can adopt. But you come lower down. Well, Allah has honored me. Allah has humiliated me. Comparing to that person, he is on a better place. That he is attributing honor or humiliation to Allah, not to any other God. But if he thinks that in this world what is given to him is honor, and if there is poverty or something of that type, then it is humiliation, it is wrong. Neither the honor is honor nor humiliation is humiliation. Both are equal. But there is certain a further level of guidance. You may think that the testing by way of inflictions and sort of pain, this test is greater, harder than the test when he blesses, when he gives plenty. No. Real case is the reverse. When he gives you plenty, you will tend to forget him. When you are in need, you will turn to him. So that examination, that test is worse than the test of poverty or pain. Because if you are, enjoying life, rejoicing, everything in plenty, then you will forget Allah. If you are in pain, if you are afflicted by something, you will turn to Allah. And that is what happened with Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah. When from the government level, the idea of creativity of Quran, that Quran is also created. This aqidah was being enforced by the state, by government. And he stood up, I am not going to accept this. Ituni bishay'in min kitabillahi wa sunnati rasulihi taqul. If you can produce some argument, some proof from the book of Allah or the sayings of his prophet, then I will say. If you can't produce any proof, I won't accept. He was beaten. They say he was beaten in a way that even if an elephant was beaten in that way, that would have not been able to bear it. But he never wept. He took all the beatings. But then the conditions changed. Now the Khalifa, who took over from the former Khalifa, he believed in the same thing in which Ahmed ibn Hanbal believed. Now from the court of the Khalifa, a messenger came with some gold pieces, ashrafis, dinars, that the Khalifa has sent this for you as a gift, as a present. Now he wept. Oh Allah, I can't stand this test. This is harder. To be able to resist temptation is more difficult than to resist the persecution. So these are the three levels. فَأَمَّا الْإِنسَانُ إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ رَبُّهُ فَأَكْرَمَهُ وَنَعَّمَهُ فَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَكْرَمَنِ. No. It's not the honor. You are mistaken. وَأَمَّا إِذَا مَبْتَلَاهُ فَقَدَرَ عَلَيْهِ رِزْقَهُ وَيَقُولُ رَبِّي أَهَانًا. No. This is not humiliation. Kalla. No, not at all. بَلْ لَا تُكْرِمُونَ الْيَتِيمِ. But your character, most of you have fallen down so much regarding morality that you don't honor the orphan. This is the condition of the Arabian society at that time. They had gone so low, generally speaking. There were exceptions, but generally. لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين. And you do not urge others even to feed the needy and hungry. وَتَأْكُلُونَ التُّرَاثَ أَكْلًا لَمًّا. And you eat up all the inheritance with devouring greed. Don't take anybody else anything else. Take all the inheritance. This was the practice with them. The older son, he inherited everything. Nothing to even the younger sons. Nothing. What to speak of daughters? So, تَأْكُلُونَ التُّرَاثَ أَكْلًا لَمًّا وَتُحِبُّونَ الْمَالَ حُبًّا جَمًّا. And you love wealth with abounding love. Kalla. Certainly not. إِذَا دُكَّتِ الْأَرْضُ دَكًّا دَكًّا. When the earth will be crushed into powder, or when the earth will be beaten flat by continuous beating. These are two translations done by two sons of Shah Waliullah Dehlvi. Shah Rafiuddin, Rahimahullah, and Shah Abdul Qadir. One has translated, when the earth will be crushed into powder. And the other, when the earth will be beaten flat by continuous beating and beating and beating and beating, so it becomes flat. No mountains, nothing of the sorts, no heights, no depths, no oceans. We have read that the seas will be flowed out and they will become dry. So the whole earth will be one piece, plain, simple, and stretched. This we have already read in Surah Al-Inshiqaq. وَإِذَا الْأَرْضُ مُدَّتْ, to be stretched. So that it holds all the mankind at once, standing before the Lord. Because this is going to become the ground where you know that reckoning and judgment will be passed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we say in Persian, Qissa-e-Zameen, Barsar-e-Zameen. This is the matter of this earth, whatever we have earned, working here, living here. So all the matters will be decided here. So the next ayah is very important. وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَالْمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will himself descend to this earth. We can't say how this descent will be. But this is it. Just as we had the hadith that every night in the small hours of the morning, Allah comes down to the nearest heaven, Sama'at Dunya. And then it is called, Hal min mustaghfirin faghfir lah. Is there anybody asking for forgiveness, so I should forgive him? Hal min sa'ilin fa'utiyahu. Is there someone requesting me something, so that I should grant it to him? Now, one step more. Every night he comes to the first heaven. On that day, he will descend further, and he will come on this earth. وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ, and your Lord, and the angels rank upon rank, وَالْمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا. Now this flattened earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's descent, the angels and all the humans, from Adam till the last man of his progeny, which will come in this earth, in this world, till the end of this world. وَجِيَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ بِجَهَنَّمٍ. And then the hell will be brought face to face with them. يَوْمَئِذٍ يَتَذَكَّرُ الْإِنسَانُ. On that day, man will receive admonition. He will be reminded. He will come to his senses. وَأَنَّى لَهُ الذِّكْرَى. Now to what avail? He's coming to senses. He's getting the admonition. He's getting the reminding now is of no avail. فَأَنَّى لَهُ الذِّكْرَى. يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي قَدَّمْتُ لِحَيَاتِي. He will say, would that I had forwarded some good for this life of mine. Now it will dawn upon him, this is the life. I thought that life in that world was the real life. That was only a preface to life. The real book of life has opened today. And alas, I sent nothing for this life. I kept working, only for that life. The requirements or the facilities, conveniences or luxuries of this life. يقول يا ليتني قدمت لحياتي فيومئذ لا يعذب عذابه أحد. So none can chastise as he shall chastise on that day. ولا يوثق وثاقه أحد. And no one can bind anyone as he shall bind these disbelievers. They will be bound and chastised. In the end, these 4 small ayat are very heartening. And blessed are the souls to whom Allah will say these words. You can only pray that Allah includes us also. Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutmainnah. Oh, you soul that remained at peace. Nafs mutmainnah. Nafs lawwama in Surah Qiyamah. Nafs ammara in Surah Yusuf. Nafs mutmainnah. This is the highest spiritual station for the soul and spirit of man. And what is this itminan? Whether something good is coming to you or whether something which is unpleasant coming to you, you stand there like a rock, not to be influenced by these changing conditions. Whatever is coming from my Lord. And you are there firm. Inna allazina qalu rabbuna Allahu summa istaqamu. So you are nafs mutmainnah, the contented soul, the satisfied soul, the soul or spirit which is at peace with himself. To be at peace with yourself is also not an easy job. Repenting, what this happened, why happened, this should not have happened, what I did, I should not have done this. You are there, wavering this way, that way. But if you have accepted Allah as your Lord, whatever has come, it's from Him. न शबद नसीब दुश्मन के शबद हलाके तेगत सरे दोस्तान सलामत की तो खंजर आजमाई. Oh Allah, whatever you pleases, I am ready. At least we should be like Hazrat Ismail when he said to his father Ibrahim, Satajaduni insha'Allah min as-sabirin. Oh father, go on, go ahead, do what you have been commanded to do. And God willing, you will find me forbearing, patient. Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutmainnah. Oh, the contented and satisfied soul, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah. Now return unto your Lord, well pleased by your Lord and well pleasing to your Lord. Your Lord is pleased with you and you will be pleased with Him. Radiyatan mardiyah. And many times we find the words, Radiyallahu anhum wa radu an. Allah was pleased with them and they were pleased with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This will happen in the paradise or Jannah. But here also you should remain pleased with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides for you. No complaint. We read it in Surah Al-Taghabun. Ma asaba min musibatin illa bi iznillah. Wa man yu'min billahi yahdi qalbah. Ya ayyatuhan nafsul mutmainnah turji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah fadkhuli fi ibadi. Now go and enter my bondsmen, my servants, min al-nabiyyin wa siddiqeen wa shuhada'i wa salihin. Now you will have the company of them. وَادْخُلِي جَنَّتِي. Go and enter my garden, my paradise. Surah Al-Balad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. لا أقسم بهذا البلد وأنت حل بهذا البلد ووالد وما ولد لقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد. 3 ayats consisting of oaths. The 4th one is the statement on which these oaths have been taken. So understand first that 4th ayah. لقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد. Verily, we have created man in toil, hardships, sufferings. His life is full of hardships, sufferings. You know what happened to Mahatma Gautam Buddha? He saw different forms of sufferings. A child dying and the parents standing and weeping. Can't do anything. Why? Why is it so? A blind man falling down. Why is it blind? Then he left his palace, wife, son. I must solve, the riddle of this universe. What is this? Why this suffering? Sarvam dukkham. This is the main idea of Buddhism. All is suffering, agony, pain. Ghalib says, Qaide hayat o bande gham asl mein dono ek hain. Maut se pehle aadmi gham se nijat paaye kyun? Life contains hardships and sufferings, agonies, pains. But the second stage we have read already in Shiqaq. After suffering here, then you will be standing before your Lord also. The animals, they suffer here, yes, but they will never be questioned before their Lord. But this is the tragedy of mankind. Now the oaths on this. La uqsimu bihadha al-balad. Verily, I swear by this city. That is Makkah. Makkah was hard for living. No vegetation. Nothing grew over there. Biwadin ghairi zi zar. Not an easy or pleasant place to live. Wa anta hillum bihadha al-balad. Over and above that, and you, O Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you are a dweller in this city, and you will be permissible in this city. What does it mean? Number one, that people are persecuting you here. First of all, the city is hard to live. And now you are having the hardship because these disbelievers, they are opposing you. They are calling you names. They are saying you have gone mad. So this is another toil, another suffering, another dimension of suffering. And the other meaning is that you will be permissible. One day will come, and that is the victory of Makkah, when you will be allowed to make warfare in this city. Otherwise, it is forbidden city. This is Baladul Haram. No fighting here. And this was the tradition of the Arabs, that even if a person was searching for the killer, murderer of his father for years together and couldn't find him, but then he saw him in Makkah, in Haram, but he won't say anything to him. Don't do any harm. He is in Makkah. This is Baladul Amin, Baladul Haram. But one day will be for you, O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This ban will be lifted. Your struggle will reach that place. 13 or 14 persons were killed on the day of the victory of Makkah. وَوَالِدٍ وَمَا وَلَدٍ. And another manifestation of this toil and hardship the begotter and the begotten. Now father has to look after the child, to provide for the child. This is not an easy job, rearing the children, bringing them up. Hardship, hardship over hardship, hardship over hardship. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We have created man in hardship and toil. أَيَحْسَبُ أَن لَّن يَقْدِرَ عَلَيْهِ أَحَدٌ. Does he think that nobody will be able to have power over him? يَقُولُ أَهْلَكْتُ مَالًا لُبَدًا. And he says boastingly, well, I squandered abundant wealth in charity. They used to boast. I fed so many people. I helped so many people. أَيَحْسَبُ أَن لَّمْ يَرَهُ أَحَدٌ. Does he think that nobody observed him? If he was doing for Allah, so Allah is seeing. He has seen. No use saying it. But if it was to show off to the people, then you will have no reward from Allah. Simple. يَقُولُ أَهْلَكْتُ مَالًا لُبَدًا أَيَحْسَبُ أَن لَّمْ يَرَهُ أَحَدٌ. Now the blessings on man. أَلَمْ نَجْعَل لَّهُ عَيْنَيْنِ. Didn't we give him two eyes to see? وَلِسَانًا وَشَفَتَيْنِ. And a tongue and two lips, with the help of which you speak. وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ. And we guided him to the two highways. Now the interpretation of these two highways is number one, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put, as we shall find in the next surah, the knowledge of good and evil is inherent in human souls. So as if Allah has already guided them. This way is wrong, this way is correct. This is good, this is bad. Telling a lie is bad. Speaking the truth is good. Everybody knows. Fulfilling the promise is good. Going back on their promise, bad. To be respectful to your parents, good. To be disrespectful, bad. Who doesn't know it? So we have already guided him to the two highways. But another interpretation is that the breasts of the mother, the child is born, baby, knows nothing. But as if some had taught him, someone, that your food is there in the breast of your mother. Go and suck it. Nobody has to train him. If that training was not already given to him, how could you feed that baby? So this is the other interpretation, and I prefer this interpretation. فَلَقْتَحَمَ الْعَقَبَةَ. Despite our blessings, man has not been able to cross the narrow valley, which is very high. Aqaba. In high mountains, narrow valleys, man didn't cross them. What do you mean by that? The explanation is coming in the following ayat. What is that? مَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةُ. Do you know? What will make you understand what is this Aqaba? What is this narrow valley at the height? Fakku Raqaba. Freeing of a slave. You set a slave free. Service to mankind. Sympathy with your human fellow beings. To be able to spend your money to relieve your fellow beings from pain and suffering. This is the narrow bottleneck which man, due to his miserliness, niggardliness, stinginess, he can't cross due to love of wealth. Fakku raqabatin aw it'amun fi yawmin zi masghabatin, or feeding on a day of hunger, when there is famine, when there is drought. And if you have some store of grain, some stock, Normally you like to keep it. But whosoever can share this with the fellow beings, although he sees that maybe he will need it tomorrow, but no. It'amun fi yawmin zi masghaba. Yatiman za makraba. An orphan who is also a relative, Qarabatdar, who is a kin. Aw miskinan za matraba, or a needy man lying in the dust. This is the narrow valley which you cross. That is, you have let loose the brake. The love for wealth is the brake. Your car cannot go. You are pushing the accelerator, but the brake is there. Your car cannot move. So whatever you try, you cannot be a righteous person unless you are relieved of this love for wealth. And this subject we have read in detail in Surah Al-Hadid. اعلموا أن الله يحيي الأرض بعد موتها قد بينا لكم الآيات لعلكم تعقلون إن المصدقين والمصدقات وأقرضوا الله قرضا حسنا يضاعف لهم ولهم أجر كريم والذين آمنوا بالله ورسله. Those who pass this narrow bottleneck and then they have faith, then their character, their moral character, it will go up and up and up. But you have to open the brake first, and that brake is the love of wealth. When you have passed through this narrow valley, ثُمَّ كَانَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْمَرْحَمَةِ. And then you join those people who have faith, who believe, and who exhort each other for patience and exhort each other for compassion. Now this is Surah Al-Asr written over here. Wal-Asr, inna al-insana lafi khusr, illa allazina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. The only difference is, Amal Salihat has been taken first. Freeing a slave, feeding the hungry. This is Amal Salih. In Surah Al-Asr, Iman, then Amal Salih, then Tawasi bil Haqq, then Tawasi bil Sabr. Here the sequence is different. The most important Amal Salih, sympathy for your fellow beings. فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ أَوْ إِطْعَامٌ فِي يَوْمٍ ذِي مَسْغَبَةٍ يَتِيمًا ذَا مَقْرَبَةٍ أَوْ مِسْكِينًا ذَا مَتْرَبَةٍ, mentioned here. Now you join that band, that group, that Hizbullah, who has faith, and they exhort each other for sabr and marhaba. أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْمَيْمَنَةِ. These are the people to whom their records will be handed over in their right hands. وَالَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا بِآيَاتِنَا. As for those who belie our revelations, hum ashabul mashramah. They are the people to whom their record will be handed over in their left hands. عَلَيْهِمْ نَارٌ مُوصَدَةٌ. They will be in the fire, but the fire will be vaulted over, closed from upside. If there is an oven and it's closed from above, then all the heat is within. If there is some opening, then heat goes out also. But closed, muqsada. Alayhim narun muqsada. Now let me give you an introduction. Two pairs of two surahs each going to make a Chahar surah, a collection of 4 surahs. Chahar surah of Nur and Zulmat, light and darkness. There are opposites in this universe. Good, bad, height and low. All these things, contradictions. But with these contradictions, this universe is working. And without these contradictions, there would be no working of this universe. But there is another contradiction, and that is within you. The urge to do good and the urge to do bad, evil. Both are within you. You have the nafs ammara, which is urging you for something bad. Inna nafsa ammaratum bisu. You have that spirit. It wants to pull you up towards your Lord. So, this nur and zulmah, light and darkness, as they are opposed to each other, in the same way, good and evil, they are opposed to each other. So in these surahs you will find, in the first 8 ayat consist of oaths and very small, statement on which this oath has been taken. In the next surah, there will be 3 ayat for oaths, and then on what the oath is taken, it is detailed somewhat. Then the third is Surah Al-Duha, the highest level to which a human can rise, and that is Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, talking to him personally at an absolutely personal level. Surah Al-Duha or Surah Al-Inshirah. These 4 surahs, very beautiful, very important, and the subject gradually develops. As if there is a flower bud. It has not exfoliated. The petals are there in that bud, but they are not visible. When this flower opens up, this bud, now the petals are visible. So you will find, the gist, the essence in the first surah, that is Surah Al-Shams. Then it will open up, it will be explained, dilated upon in Surah Al-Layl. And then it reaches its zenith in Surah Al-Duha and Surah Al-Inshirah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Wash-shamsi wa duhaha. By the sun and its brightness. Wal-qamari idha talaha. And by the day and by the moon when it follows the sun. Tala yatlu means to follow. This tilawatul Quran, this word is derived from this root. In reading Quran, we follow with the text. And some of the people, they move their fingers along with the text. You might have seen. So it's a following. You are following the text. But the exact literal meaning of Tala yatlu is to follow someone. By the sun and its brightness, and by the moon when it follows the sun. وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا. And by the day when it reveals the sun, as if day has shown us the sun. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا. And by the night when it enshrouds the sun, covers the sun. Sun is gone, not visible. وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا. And by the heaven, and as he created it, built it, or by him who has created it. These are 2 ways of translating this. Ma was-samai, and by the heaven, wama banaha, and the way Allah has created it, or by him who has created it. Wal ard wama tahaha, and by the soul, by the earth, and by him who created it, spread it, or by the earth, and as it has been spread. Wa nafsin wa ma sawwaha, and by the human soul, and as he has finished it, created it, finished it, given him the finishing touches. These are the 8 ayat. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Then he has inspired in it, in the soul, human soul, with the consciousness of the wickedness and piety. This human soul is not blind. It sees. This is right, this is wrong. This is good, this is bad. These basic moral values are inherent in human spirit, human soul. Man knows by his very nature, this is good, this is bad, this is evil, this is good. Now what is the statement on which these 8 oaths have been taken? Now, if there are differences, there will be different ends also. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. All these oaths are on this statement. Successful will be only who? That who purifies this nafs. And whosoever buries it, dassaha, whosoever buries it in the dust, he is a failure, he is doomed. This ayah has first once more come in Surah Al-A'la, Sabbih isma rabbika al-A'la. Qad aflaha man tazakka. Qad aflaha man tazakka. Half of this statement was there. But here this statement, if you see the day and the night, if you see the sun and the moon, if you see the sky and the earth, if you are seeing all these things different, so the end will be different. If the good and evil are different, then you know there are going to be 2 goals, 2 ends. Qad aflaha man zakkaha. Definitely successful will be one who purifies his soul. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Dassa yadusso. We had read it, that a Bedouin, when it was told to him that a daughter has been born, then he kept on thinking, should I keep her despite all this humiliation, or I should go and bury him in the dust, in the sand. That is dassaha. I told you, if this nafs has not been purified, if this id and libido has overwhelmed it, what does it mean? As if this soul or spirit is dead and buried in this grave. Now this body of mine is a grave for this soul. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Now this happens at the individual level, and this happens also at the collective level. So collective level is mentioned in the remaining 5 ayat of this surah, which we shall take inshallah tomorrow. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Quran al-Azim wa nafani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikril hakim.